This is my most asked question here on this channel and on my Instagram. If you're not already following me over there, go do that. The question is, how do I convince my friends and family to be more sustainable? So today, in honor of Earth Month, I thought this would be a really good, resourceful, useful video to have. In my experience, people are more likely to get involved with things when there's a day dedicated to it. So this video is technically going to come out after Earth Day, but hopefully the momentum of Earth Month is still existing and you can use these tips to help them change their mind on some habits or things that they might do in their lives. Now, disclaimer, I am not an expert at convincing anyone to do anything. I know my job is technically labeled as an influencer, but I can't influence my friends and family to do hardly anything at all. There's only one thing that has been tried and true on nearly everyone that I've tried it on that changes their mind, and I'm gonna save that tip till last, but I'm also gonna provide ways I have changed small things here and there within people and strategies we can implement to get different people to shift their mindset a little bit. So without further ado, here are my do's and don'ts of how to convince your family to live sustainably. First up is information and education. You can't care about something if you don't know about it. And a lot of the reasons for the things that I care about today are things I've learned through media, my education, documentaries, things like that. I find the two most common responses when I'm trying to convince anyone to do any sustainable XYZ thing is that A, it doesn't matter, like the thing that I'm talking about isn't actually happening, or it's not that big of a deal, or they just don't care, or B, they don't think that them as an individual can make any sort of meaningful difference. For someone to care about why I'm saying they should start composting, they have to know all of the issues behind why not doing that is awful for the environment. I actually have a whole carousel post over on Instagram about the environmental impacts of food waste if you want to go learn more, but there are so many ways that food waste impacts our environment and why us as individuals starting a compost can actually have a massive environmental footprint or impact in a positive way. So baseline, educate the people in your life that you want to care. You can't expect them to care about the things you care about if they're not well informed on the things that you care about and why they're important. And that's why today's video is sponsored by Wondrium, because it is the perfect place for you to point your friends and family to learn more about these issues, because they actually have specifically an earth sciences section on their website. So Wondrium is a learning platform that has short form and long form videos. They also have tutorials, how-tos, travelogues, documentaries, and so many other things. It's academically comprehensive, thoroughly researched, and relentlessly entertaining, and presented by very engaging experts, which I think is important when we're trying to get new people on board. We're not trying to have a snooze fest and bore them to death, right? Hi, this is the evening after I recorded this video. I'm actually just sitting here watching Wondrium, specifically watching Our Changing Climate, and I want to tell you about this mind-blowing fact I just learned. Watching things on Wondrium truly feels like I'm back in school, which is one of the best feelings. I don't know if everybody would agree with me, but I honestly loved school, especially when it was about sustainability, environmental science, like, y'all know that's my shit. From Our Changing Climate, episode 2, I just learned that during this meta study that they did of butterflies in the northern hemisphere, I just learned that each decade, the butterflies on average per decade are moving 6 kilometers north. I don't know if that sounds significant to you, but as someone who studied climate change and science, it's incredibly, incredibly problematic, because the further and further these species migrate, they start interrupting other ecosystems, they start losing their food source, they start interrupting other species' food sources. It leads to all sort of problems up and down the food chain within the ecosystems, all thanks to human-caused climate change. Just mind-blowing. Honestly, I think anybody who watches this channel, Wondrium will be like your new favorite place to learn things, and hopefully you can share that with your friends and family. And by partnering with them on this video, I was able to give you guys a free trial, so you can share that again with your friends and family. So if you go to wondrium.com/Shelbizleee, you'll get your free trial and you can start learning and helping educate those around you today. Next thing I found most important is to speak to their concerns. A lot of times, especially when it's associated with sustainability, we obviously have like our biases. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm willing to forego a lot in the name of sustainability. I'm willing to make myself quite uncomfortable. Not everyone is willing to do that. So speaking to their concerns and making the change that you want them to make sounding beneficial to them. We'll stick with composting for the examples throughout today's video because I think it's just something everyone should be doing. So for example, why don't you want to start a compost? Why don't you want to have a compost? Why don't you care about composting? These are all questions to get them to tell you their reasoning and their concerns. And whatever answer they give you, try to find a solution to that problem. So one of the things I hear all the time is it smells. It would be easy to tell them that actually compost doesn't smell bad unless it's breaking down improperly, in which case it emits methane, a really powerful greenhouse gas that doesn't smell very good. Of course, that's something you can say, but a more tangible solution might be to find a scientific explanation for that, right? There's science to explain this. Hopefully the person you're speaking to believes in science, that shows that when you maintain a healthy balance of organic matter, brown and green matter, that smell will not be a concern, and try to inform them on that. Another response could be, I don't want to take the time, or I don't have the time to maintain a compost. Now, I promise you, I understand this response. I convince myself all the time that I don't have time for things. So I think a really good solution to this, if you're able to, is to challenge them, to give a compost a try for just like 2 weeks to a month. I think in reality, once we create these new habits, they don't seem overwhelming and time consuming. So giving them an out and saying after a few weeks, if it really is just taking a toll on you, you don't have to keep going. And during that process, they will learn that it's really not that time consuming. I also think it's important to offer solutions by starting small. This is kind of where the idea of Meatless Monday comes from. It's give up that thing for one day, not for your whole life. And so it can ease people into the idea of changing that habit that is honestly for most people super, super ingrained into not only their everyday lives, but their culture, their nostalgia, their memories, all those things. Offering solutions and starting small, and my next tip, which is meet people where they are, kind of go hand in hand, because meeting people where they are means not going up to someone like a Southern father and telling them to go vegan overnight when they eat steak virtually every day. Offering smaller solutions that are more feasible to them is going to get them more likely to adapt these things than to just give them the full thing, go all the way. Sure, for some people that happens, but more commonly, people are going to be more responsive to slow, intermittent change. You want someone to start recycling, but they don't want to do it. It seems really confusing. They don't want to learn or take the time, etc. Meeting them where they are and offering small solutions can look like, okay, I'll get you a bin, I'll put it right next to your trash, and for the first week, just put aluminum in there. Don't worry about reading every label and figuring out if every single thing that you're putting in there is recyclable or not. Let's start with aluminum. It's very straightforward. All you gotta do is, instead of putting in this bin, put it in that bin, that's it. As someone with anxiety and who is an overthinker, I totally understand the feeling of overwhelm when you're presented with all of these things. My mom is a great example of that. She gets overwhelmed with all of it, doesn't want anything to do with it. In my mind, this video can also suffice for how to live sustainably with a family member. Like, I feel like trying to convince your friends and family is basically what people who ask how to do it when you live with parents. This kind of applies to all of that. But the thing that worked for most for me when I was trying to convince my parents to do anything when I was younger was to do it for them. My parents didn't want to compost. I'll make the compost. I'll take out the compost. My parents didn't want to recycle. I'll find a recycling company. I'll go drop off the recycling. I'll get us a recycling bin. I'll take it out. I'll sort it. I'll clean it. I'll do whatever. Not that offering to do these things myself always worked out, but it is a solution that if you want someone else to do something, getting them started and doing it for them is an option. Well, it can be. I don't know if it will be for you specifically, but definitely something to consider. I basically would always buy the dish soap. The dish soap that stayed by the sink, my sister never bought any in plastic because she just used what I had there. I did it for her. Obviously, I had the financial ability and privilege to be able to do that, and I know that's not everybody's situation, but taking into consideration if you can just do that thing that you want others to do yourself is something that I think like we can consider. I think deploying a little bit of understanding is needed in a lot of these discussions. We base our lifestyles and our experiences and our passions on things that have happened in our lives, and we have to understand that not everyone has had those same experiences. So deploy a little bit of understanding when people don't share the exact same perspective as you, while also sharing your perspective, because that can also give them new perspective and new experiences. I think along with understanding is also patience. I think realizing that you can implement all the things I just talked about in so many different ways and examples and blah, 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 and it's not gonna happen tomorrow, but if you give it a little bit of time, it might happen next week or next month. Something I really want to drive home is that you don't put all this pressure on yourself to begin with as an individual, and then don't spread that over to your friends and family either. It's not up to us as individuals to save the world. That's why I came up with my whole new little catchphrase, do your best and advocate for the rest, because I really want to drive home this idea not to get burnt out, not to get too much eco anxiety, and not to pressure and harm relationships with your friends and family when they're not changing, because really it's not the key to saving the world. I do feel very strongly that building relationships and community is the key to changing the planet, right? All of us collectively together giving a shit and demanding change from the people in power. I do think there's power in that. And so I think it makes a lot of sense that we want who we are immediately connected to, our immediate communities, to be on board with this stuff with us. I think it makes perfect sense. But if that doesn't happen, it's okay to shift your focus. And this is something I'm learning recently. If your immediate existing community doesn't care the same way you do, it's okay to expand your community. Not that you have to stop being friends or cut your family off with the people who don't care, but it's okay to have friends and family over here who you share certain things with and that you're passionate about certain things with. And it's okay to have another group where that part of yourself that cares so deeply about the environment and sustainability and making a difference, it's okay to have a separate community to discuss and actively work towards those things with. And I didn't want to make a video talking about how to convince your friends and family to do that without putting that in here, because I think that could be the key to a lot of the pain that I'm hearing in the conversations about my boyfriend doesn't care about this or my mom won't do that. Finding people to relate with that aspect of yourself is going to be probably really fulfilling for you. Okay, are you ready for the only thing that's actually ever worked for me? Lead by example. This is actually the primary reason I started a YouTube channel a long time ago, because I couldn't convince anybody in my friend group or my family to change their habits. Sure, I could get them to change little things here and there, but nobody cares about things on the level that I do. At least nobody that I convinced to, right? Madison was an environmental science major as well. My brother-in-law, he gives a shit about the environment almost for as long as I do. Just simply living by example, doing what I do, talking about what I care about is the only thing that's ever gotten my mom to tell me, I remember my reusable grocery bags today, and be excited about it. My dad doesn't care. But when someone in my family finds something secondhand, they're so excited to tell me. And the only reason that is because I've lived that way for years, and they know I care, and they know why it's important now, because I've lived by example for a decade. I hope this was helpful, and I hope that you will continue to live by example and implement these things when you're talking to friends and family in your life. I want to give another huge shout out to Wondrium for sponsoring this video. Like I said, you can get a free trial with the link at the top of the description. And remember, until next time, you cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that you can do. Bye, guys.